you're going to flat two.
Rhodes, you sound great, man.
I love it. It sounds so nice.
So cool. Feels good to get back in the groove. Yeah, dude, you and I. It's like, oh my God, it's been a while.
so high. So, raise the Well, because you're doing the show. So.
Yeah.
What do you use when you play in that band?
In the rock band?
Yeah.
I'm using just all live instruments.
You use a Nord?
Yeah. I have a Nord, and I have a Hammond, like, organ, module.
Oh, nice.
Wow.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Season Nord.
Yeah, so, like, the Nord for the basic sound,
Right.
and the organ dedicated.
The thing I was curious how Meldau gets, that one scene, the Hungry Ghost, how he gets that, like, it's like an electric piano, but it's like almost like a reverb-y, like a delay.
Yeah, if we get into that stuff, that's a whole adventure for me to figure out how it gets that sound stuff going.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm just thinking like that would be kind of fun to like play around with.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just like that thing of like.
I also have I've never brought it on a gig, but I have a Moog like 7.25, which is like a analog synthesizer.
Wow.
So that's another thing I could haul in.
You get that really cool analog sound.
Yeah.
Wow.
I don't use it often, so there's like a million things to explore with it, but it sounds great.
Yeah, it's just I've been listening to all these different groove-oriented stuff, and it's like, man,
It
there's a lot of possibilities out there.
Yeah.
A lot of possibilities out there. Just, like, I mean, his thing is very like super high end. Like Lewis Cole stuff is very high end.
Sure.
Super busy, like almost chaotic.
Yeah.
But it doesn't have to be like that.
Sure.
But I was checking it. That's why I sent that other one.
I haven't listened to it yet. But...
No, it's alright. Listen to it on your way home from.
Yeah.
Thing. This is some interesting stuff in there. There's a lot of stuff. There's another band called Hiatus Coyote.
Oh, I know that name. I've never listened to that.
Yeah, it's just like that. Like it's more like groove-oriented stuff. Just like I'm thinking, like as far as like songwriting structure, that'd be kind of fun. I don't know. It's just like vocalist kind of stuff, but it's like interesting, more like R&B harmonies, but like jazz sensibility, I guess.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I don't know. How you doing, man? You sweating over there? You okay?
Oh yeah. I always
The
sweat.
lights are hot.
It's definitely. It's just fun to play.
Yeah, man.
You guys do a lot of. You basically do a lot of jazz stuff or
Show stuff, more
show stuff.
We'd like to do more jazz stuff, but it's hard to get.
Yeah, we try to play jazz whenever we can, but just get so busy with trying to make ends meet.
Yeah, it's like.
But it's also scheduling. It's really hard to find like a third or fourth person.
Yeah.
Really hard to find.
It is kind of. That's definitely.
And it's also like now, I mean, it can be like negative, but it's like a lot of guys are like, "Is there a gig or what?"
Yeah.
I know, yeah.
It's
like. It's tough because there's always the balance between, having to pay the bills and then also want to explore, camaraderie with other musicians and experiment with your own stuff or, just not feel rigid within like having outside of the regular gig,
If money were no object, I'd just try to play jazz all the time.
Sure.
Yeah, sure. I mean, that's the...
Especially now with kids, it's really hard.
Yeah, it's even harder.
Yeah, it's even harder because it's like a lot of, just trying to, figure out how to, make ends meet. I mean...
I'm just looking at it more like, I think a lot of people will probably typecast me as a jazz guy. So like it'd be kind of cool to do something else. Just to see like, no, I can do this too.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. So you don't get pigeonholed. into-
Yeah, I'm already
everything
thinking,
with the
oh, you do
bells
jazz.
out.
I mean, people. It's cool that people think of me for the jazz stuff, but they don't think I can do.
Yeah. It's like I think like as a bass player, we always good people. I could do rock, because I started out more doing harder rocks, but I was always doing. I was born and raised in Harlem, so I was always into funk and R&B. So I was always having that kind of stuff. But to be able to have a reputation, is like you can handle the different. I used to play in Harlem. I used to play an all-black band. I was the bass player. It was a lot. When I was a kid, it was some pressure because they're going like, what? I'm not even Chinese, but they go, "There's a Chinese bass player," something like, but stuff like that, But I guess a lot of it is you're right, just to think to keep us every. Oh man, they can do anything, because just.
Well, I also feel like the shows in general are going more in the pop direction.
Yeah.
So if you're just like, oh, okay, a Spang-a-lang. I'm like, yeah,
It's like they don't.
Usually, a show just be like.
Yeah, right.
No show does that anymore.
Yeah.
Really.
Yes, that's true.
Maybe a song.
Thinking about all the Broadway shows, the musicals, it's like definitely going that more.
Right, and not only that, but like, I don't know. I mean, playing jazz music is fun, but like, it's hard to get people to come out.
Yeah.
If you do a thing with like groove or jazz or
Yes.
anything, people are gonna come out because you're gonna be like, oh, I like the way that music makes you feel, as opposed to like some esoteric. That's kind of weird. What if
That's a good point. Yeah.
I mean,
Because I noticed that I'm always playing in like groove, funky. You're always gonna get like sometimes old diehards like, oh man, they're doing some old, if you throw in a few old covers, R&B covers or something, or
People don't want to like think about the music; they just want to like move to it.
yeah.
That's a good point. I was thinking like, wow, because it's like, and then people were going, like when I had my own band, I was, I did, a lot of funky kind of tunes, all the stuff I wrote. And then I would throw in like maybe R&B covers like Good Times or something. But then people it's like like we used to do the cutting room stuff. It was like a long set, and then so people would I noticed that people really in the long sets they really like it when you do the funky groove stuff. Because I would bring in just a horn set with two guys on horn, a small horn section, because I saw like wow, that's where. The audience really, because the whole idea is to get people to fill the room. So he's trying to sell tickets. You're trying to figure out but it was that kind of thing. I go, oh, wow, man, what about my cool pop tunes, or something. But it's I know what you mean. It's
Yeah,
like,
you gotta meet people halfway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think these
If
days.
if you start with something and then you can play a song or two that's like a little different, you still got their attention.
Yeah. And also the thing is, what I noticed when you have control of it's like they all know it's an original thing, but it's a groove, funky kind of. Then you can get away with throwing in stuff that's a little out there because the one or two you can, that way you can. Because a lot of times I need to make sure, even though I'm paying people, I want to keep them happy. So as long as it's like it's if I have to listen to the keyboard's mother tell me. I think my daughter needs another solo. I'm going like, she's got 4 solo and 5 in the 7, But it's like you always have to try to keep everybody, so in a way you can throw in there as a way to keep try to keep the same people if you can,
Sure.
I mean, it's not easy. But just so you don't have to keep teaching. But and also you develop the band starts to gel as a band, because I'm from old school when, in this building I was in a band in the